This is CBN News Watch.
It is Tuesday, July 21st. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Efrem Graham. Ahead today, President Donald Trump resuming the White House coronavirus task force briefings. That move comes as there is promising news for a vaccine soon. We're going to talk to our CBN News medical reporter, Lori Johnson, about exactly what we can expect. The president also warning crime is out of control in America's major cities and saying he plans to send in federal agents. A new confrontation between China and the U.S. Why and where it could happen. And some good news, how two friends, black and white, talk about bringing racial reconciliation to America, and a church in California saying despite the lockdowns, they're finding new ways to reach out and minister. All those stories and more are ahead in this edition of CBN News Watch. We begin this half hour with President Donald Trump returning to holding White House coronavirus briefings starting today.
So I think what we're going to do is I'll get involved and we'll start doing briefings. We had very successful briefings. I was doing them and we had a lot of people watching, record numbers watching.
The briefings return as cases have risen across the country, with people lining up for testing and as there's good news on a possible vaccine. 3 research groups released positive results in 3 separate studies. Health experts still caution the tests will have to be confirmed in larger trials with tens of thousands of people. As the director of the National Institutes of Health, Dr. Francis Collins, helps to lead America's response to the coronavirus outbreak, he spoke with our CBN News medical reporter, Lori Johnson, and said he's hopeful we could have a vaccine within the next several months.
I am cautiously optimistic that by the end of 2020, let's say around about December, one or more of the several vaccines that are now going through rigorous testing will have been shown to be safe and effective and will be available for the public, although probably we will not immediately have 300 million doses.
And Lori Johnson joins us right now with more. So, Lori, he says we could have a vaccine possibly by the end of the year. How likely is it?
Well, you know, I really don't think that he would have made such a bold statement if he couldn't back it up. We know how that would really make a lot of egg on his face if he promised something by December and then it turned out not to be that. And plus, we know that the early trials of these vaccines have gone very well. All that remains are the large trials. You know, we're talking about 30,000 people that are being signed up right now for these phase 3 trials. And we'll have the results of these phase 3 trials in a couple of months.
Exactly how would the vaccine work?
Well, it's really interesting. We've talked so much about antibodies. What happens is God designed us that when we are invaded by a virus, for example, like this, our immune system naturally produces these antibodies specifically designed to kill this virus. And that's what kills it. The problem, Efrem, is a lot of people don't have enough of the antibodies. People who are immunocompromised, people who are older, we don't produce the antibodies that we need. So what happens is this vaccine causes us to produce the antibodies that we need and also T cells to fight that off, and it stays in our bloodstream for a while and so it continues to offer immunity. So that's how the vaccine would work, and we've seen that in the early trials that it's producing 4 times the amount of the antibodies that our body naturally does.
Now, even when the vaccine does become available, 1 in 5 Americans say they will not take it. Why not?
I know. I know there are people watching us right now who are like, nope, no way, no, because it has been rushed to market. And a lot of people are afraid of that maybe the scientists are skimping on safety or effectiveness. But most people are concerned about safety. But these people, Dr. Fauci and Dr. Collins and the other scientists say that, yes, we're rushing it to market, but we're not cutting any corners when it comes to safety or effectiveness. The rush comes in where they're actually making the vaccine ahead of time. Usually a vaccine is approved and then it takes 6 months to make enough doses. What they're doing is they're making the doses now so that the moment it's approved, they can get it out.
Okay, which is very critical and important. And not only is the number of cases rising, though, but the number of deaths is starting to go up as well.
Right, and we're seeing death rates increase, although I do want to report that in Texas, we're seeing the death rates start to go down, so hopefully they've passed their peak. And we need to remember that the overall death rate in the United States is 3.8%. What that means is out of all the people who have tested positive, 3.8% of the positive tested people have died. That is not spread equally. People who are over 80 have a higher death rate, up close to 10%. People who are under 20, a death rate closer to 0%.
Now, we showed that soundbite from Dr. Francis Collins at the start of this segment. You interviewed him for your Healthy Living program, and that's tonight on the CBN News Channel. What all did you talk to him about?
Well, really, my greatest takeaway, Ephraim, was his faith. He was an atheist doctor in medical school, and he started noticing the natural world and studying the natural world, the human body, and that caused him to become a Christian, and he's now an outspoken Christian. So here he is, a scientist and a doctor. I feel like you don't see that type of thing every day, but he said, no, actually 40% of scientists claim to be believers in God, and not just vague, surfacey believers, but they believe in a God who answers prayers. So that to me was very encouraging.
Yeah, I quietly interview all my doctors about their beliefs. So
oh, really?
I understand. Yes, before signing off.
It's very reassuring to know that scientists are also believers, because people mistakenly believe that science and faith are at odds, and they're not.
No, not at all. I want to remind you that you can see Lori's full interview with Dr. Collins on Healthy Living. It is tonight at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel. Lori, thank you so much. President Trump says he plans to send more federal law enforcement officers into more democratically run cities that are facing unrest. This move follows his deployment of agents to Portland earlier this month. Portland has experienced more than 7 weeks of protest and violence, but city and state officials say they don't want the federal agents there, and they're making the problem worse. Conservative leaders say the city officials are allowing the problem to get out of control.
How about Chicago? I read the numbers were many people killed over the weekend. We're looking at Chicago, too. We're looking at New York. Look at what's going on. All run by Democrats, all run by very liberal Democrats, all run really by radical left. But we can't let this happen to the cities. New York was up 348%, the crime wave.
The New York Daily News reports gun violence and murders have spiked across the city, even as the number of arrests have plunged. One officer in Queens told the paper, once the court system is back to full speed after the coronavirus lockdowns ease up, street violence will drop, adding, it just feels like the criminals know they can get away with anything now. We complain a lot, but I've never seen it this bad. I want to turn now overseas to China. Poor families in that country are now being told to renounce their faith or lose welfare benefits. Bitter Winter reports the coronavirus outbreak has deeply affected the Chinese economy, especially low-income households struggling to make ends meet. Now, government officials are ordering Christians who receive welfare payments to replace crosses, religious symbols, and images inside their homes with portraits of China's communist leaders. One church member told Bitter Winter poor religious households must obey the Communist Party for the money they get from the state. Coming up, a military confrontation between the United States and China. The top Republican on the House Foreign Affairs Subcommittee says it could happen in as soon as 3 to 6 months. We're going to hear why he's making that warning when we come back.
On the home front.
Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Home Front, where we highlight what the men and women of America's military do to defend our country. CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Home Front. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans.
On the Home Front, Tuesday morning at 10:30.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government.
My focus has been trying to really make sure we have the future leaders we need for the bench and the bar and for society generally.
You'll learn from highly credentialed leaders who are current and former judges, distinguished scholars, and ACLJ counsel.
I'm so glad I chose Regent. The relationships here have been amazing. The faculty have been amazing. Not everybody's called to the same thing when they leave law school, but they're called by God who has a purpose for their lives, and He is going to use that education to make a difference in the world.
Regent will prepare you to be a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer. To start your rewarding law career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July. Apply today.
It has the power to influence weight loss, boost your immune system, and improve brain function.
We've seen an explosion of data on the role of the gut microbiome in health.
The free Build a Better Gut booklet reveals the latest information about the gut microbiome. You'll discover how your gut affects the rest of your health.
The gut microbiome has been linked to depression and cancer and heart disease.
Learn how to build a stronger, healthier gut.
The microbiome, if it's in good composition, are really protecting us all the time from more invasive things.
Get the Build a Better Gut booklet, free from the Christian Broadcasting Network. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/buildabettergut.
You need to make sure that your microbes are working with you, not against you.
And if you order online, you'll get immediate access to the Build a Better Gut series, a digital copy of the booklet, and related bonus material. Build a Better Gut today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/buildabettergut for your free copy.
Get the top political news and analysis from Washington on Faith Nation, tonight at 6 Eastern, only on the CBN News Channel.
Conflict is escalating between the United States and China on several fronts, and now the possibility of a military showdown. The latest flashpoint that could cause this confrontation is an area called the South China Sea, part of the Pacific Ocean south of China. And last week, for the first time, the U.S. declared China's activities in that area illegal. George Thomas takes a look at the growing tensions between the two powerful countries in this part of the world.
For the first time, the U.S. government this week declared China's activities in the South China Sea illegal.
On Monday, for the first time, we made our policy on the South China Sea crystal clear. It's not China's maritime empire.
Now this 4 million square kilometer shipping lane is turning into a major flashpoint, so much so that Representative Ted Yoho, the top Republican on the House Foreign Affairs Subcommittee for Asia, sees potential military action ahead, telling the Washington Examiner, "I would predict there will be a clash within the next 3 to 6 months. Such a scenario would be devastating for a global economy already reeling from a viral pandemic. Some $3 trillion worth of trade passes through the South China Sea each year."
It is incredibly important to U.S. imports and exports, and incredibly important to many of our allies and partners. There are tremendous economic interest in maintaining the freedom of navigation and commerce through that area.
China wants to limit that access, claiming it has rights to almost all the South China Sea.
China's territorial sovereignty and maritime rights and interests in the South China Sea are based on sufficient historical and jurisprudential evidence and are in line with the relevant international law and practice.
Pompeo pushing back, accusing China of breaking international law and urging world leaders to stand up to Beijing's expanding territorial ambitions.
If Beijing violates the international law and free nations do nothing, then history shows that the CCP will simply take more territory. That happened in the last administration.
America has opposed China's ambitions, including efforts to turn several islands and reefs into military outposts, complete with aircraft, runway, and high-tech capability.
This is a good old-fashioned, the biggest kid on the playground, if you will, trying to bully others, to steal their resources, and to push others who might get in their way out, and foremost of that is the United States.
Since taking power, China's President Xi Jinping has embarked on a massive military modernization. Bowman says China's military prowess is the greatest threat to U.S. military supremacy, and we could see it play out in these waters. America now has 2 aircraft carriers taking part in one of its largest naval exercises in the South China Sea.
If we just rest on our laurels and assume that battles in the coming years are going to be the same as they were in the past with unquestioned American military dominance, we have a horrible surprise coming.
This latest salvo over the South China Sea coming as tensions between our 2 countries continue to escalate over trade, the coronavirus pandemic, Hong Kong, human rights, and religious freedom issues. George Thomas, CBN News.
Still ahead, an amazing story of 2 best friends, one black, one white, brought together by the Lord, and a surprising discovery about their history that their families share. We're going to bring you a look at their remarkable friendship right after this.
Having sex before you marry is a bad idea.
Don't tell me there's no such thing as gun violence.
That just depends on your definition of when life begins.
Watch Dan and Dale tackle trending topics that test your faith on the next Faith Wire, Monday night at 9:30. The Global Lane takes you around the world, providing facts over fiction.
What might rising trade and geopolitical tensions mean for you on the home front?
With over 45 years of experience, award-winning journalist Gary Lane brings you the truth from a global angle.
What about the issue of immigration?
World news analysis you won't see anywhere else.
And it's all right here on the Global Lane.
Watch The Global Lane, Thursday night at 9:30.
Welcome back. The sons of former slaves, sitting with the sons of former slave owners. That was a dream of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. back in 1963. Today, it is a reality for 2 best friends. And as Paul Strand shows us, their amazing story is nothing short of miraculous.
The Lord spoke separately to Will Ford and Matt Lockett to go to the Lincoln Memorial the same day. There at a prayer meeting, they met right where Martin Luther King gave his I Have a Dream speech.
Sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood.
They became fast friends.
Doing life together, praying together, great friendship.
I love this man like my own brother.
Now they speak about racial healing, like in this 7-part retreat from CMAX.TV, 7 Days to Change. Always nearby is this kettle, which Will's enslaved ancestors prayed under, so their sometimes violent slave masters wouldn't hear those prayers and beat them.
But several years ago, Matt and Will's relationship took a blow when they found out both their past and that kettle intertwined. They learned Matt's ancestors owned Will's ancestors.
My friend, his family is the family that owned our family.
I've been listening to the story of the slaves who prayed under the kettle for years. Then all of a sudden I found out that I had a connection to that actual story, and it was to that of the slave owner. That made it very personal for me.
I had to go to a deeper level of forgiveness, because now I had a faith connected to these stories of slaves being beat, and why we had to have secret prayer meetings.
And it was hard because all of the pain of a history and the pain of a community where that pain is endured It had a face and it had a name, and it was a face that I loved.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a struggle for several months, and I'm glad we hashed it out.
They believe the nation can now hash it out.
We can definitely rise above racism in America.
The whole nation is in a learning moment right now.
Through this retreat, we're going to hit on all these different touch points where people have been dehumanized, made less than, and hit on this thing.
Just like Will and Matt did, in fellowship and at home.
It started in a prayer meeting, and we took it into our living rooms.
Because this is the place where change starts. It starts with us right on this level.
But people will need to get up and act.
It's going to take us going beyond our bubbles, going beyond our comfort zones, and finding one another. We need the white community to make an effort to get past their comfort zones and engage and connect with other people of color.
Matt prays people won't be dismissive.
I think there's a common sentiment that, hey, I wasn't there, you weren't there, get over it. And I want to encourage us that there is a dismissive attitude that we need to address in the church. That we dare not dismiss the pain that has historical roots, that has endured to this day.
Will likes to say it's going to take a united church to heal a divided nation.
We need to connect with the parts of the body that need healing, that need help right now. It affects all of us spiritually, because when one part of the body is hurt, all of us are hurt.
We have this foundation of believing in redemption. And so as the culture is in this tug of war over who did what and who's right and who's wrong, we're actually in a position to step in and say, you know what? There's a thing called repentance and there's a thing called forgiveness.
And the mighty love that forgives.
When you think that Jesus loved us so much that he'd rather die than spend eternity without us, and you think, okay, well, what kind of love is that? That brings worth, that brings dignity, that brings value to every single person.
And if we can introduce that into the culture, oh, the work of God, I think, could explode in a powerful way right now like we've never known. Maybe we'll get a great awakening.
They hope people who gather and go through this 7 Days to Change retreat together will come to have relationships like Will and Matt's, tested, but a prophetic fulfillment of what Martin Luther King dreamed of in the exact spot where God brought Matt and Will together.
There is this table of brotherhood Dr. King talked about, sons of former slaves sitting with a son of former slave owners. And listen, we're here to tell America right now there's still room at the table.
Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
Still room at the table. To find out more about 7 Days to Change, an online virtual retreat, simply go to cbnnews.com. Coming up, California's churches facing new coronavirus restrictions, but one pastor says the ban is forcing the church to minister outside its four walls. We're going to hear from him when we come back.
I am Regent's first ROTC graduate student.
Meet the pastors who are preaching the gospel in a fresh, fearless way. I'm Roberto Torres Cedillo. Join me each week for Next Gen Voices. And watch God transform a generation.
How'd you like to get a redo on your health, on your body, on your arteries, so you could have the energy you had 20 years ago? The great news is you can. I'm Dr. Mike Roizen, chair of the Wellness Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. I've written 4 New York Times bestsellers. But even better than having to read all that, you can listen to this DVD and watch it. Protect your heart? Yes, you can. Here's how.
Go to CBN.com or call 1-800-700-7000 for your free copy of Protect Your Heart. Let the medical experts show you their new discoveries on how to avoid heart disease and even reverse it. Easy steps to uncover the hidden dangers in your medicine cabinet, reduce stress, and get a complete do-over for your health. Call 1-800-700-7000. That's 1-800-700-7000. Or go to CBN.com to claim your free copy of Protect Your Heart.
Prophecy thousands of years old.
We were called to be a light to the world.
Being fulfilled today. Discover how. Get to life. Call 1-800-700-7000.
We consider it our duty to reach out and help others around the world.
For a gift of $10 or more, you can own the acclaimed CBN documentary To Life. Just call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com.
To treat a human, no matter what he is, which religious he has, which color he is. This is what I'm doing.
See how the people of Israel are fulfilling prophecy.
History is being written, and I want to be a part of it.
By sharing their knowledge.
In Africa, in Asia, in South America, in East Europe.
And their love.
This is how we work. This is us.
Get to life. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com.
Check out the CBN News Daily Rundown podcast each weekday with me, Caitlin Burke. Click on the show tab at cbnnews.com where you can listen and subscribe.
California leaders are making it very hard for Christians to worship. First, they banned singing in churches to halt the spread of the coronavirus, and then came the recent order to ban indoor gatherings, which has put a halt to church services. Now, while some faith leaders believe the lockdown orders have been applied to houses of worship more aggressively, Pastor Mickey Stonier says the ban is forcing the church to minister outside the four walls.
During times of persecution, the church grows. Our church is growing. The influence and impact of the church is growing. We're serving the fire departments, police departments. We've been blessed to provide over 9,600 meals to medical personnel, nurses, doctors, as they're being busy. And yet you talk about prayer revival. We've had 135 churches in San Diego come together. We had a prayer event. 11 different locations. We had over 15,000 people around San Diego or online. We call it We Pray San Diego, praying for an hour for the Lord, His work, His revival to be taking place. And there's breaking out of worship services out in the beach communities, outdoors. You can't hold back the worship. People are worshiping and revival breaking out.
Stonier says since the start of the lockdown, their church has actually quadrupled in size. Now, you can hear the rest of that interview and more tonight on the prayer link, and you can find that on the CBN News channel. It begins at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. Time now for your Tuesday Tweetable. This is a message I pray will bring you comfort and move you to post tag tweet and share with others in need of comfort. Know this, your suffering is never pointless. There is purpose in your pain. Allow God to use it, and He will make your misery a priceless ministry. With that word, make this a terrific Tuesday. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN News Watch. I want to remind you, you can find our programs on the CBN News channel at any time. You can also find them online at cbnnews.com. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. Email us, the address right there on your screen, newswatch@cbn.com, or you can reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hope you'll join us again right here next time. Make it a wonderful Wednesday.